The red lights flashed across the bridge of the Coalition command ship. Ambassador Zechariah's 4 eyes focused on the screen, showing strange signals coming from the outer rim. Her scaled fingers moved quickly over the control panel as she studied the data. Another new species, she muttered to herself. In her 50 years of service, she had seen this pattern many times. A young civilization discovers space travel and immediately reaches out to the galaxy. They always want something. Food for their hungry worlds, protection from enemies, technology they cannot build themselves, or sometimes they come with threats, demanding territory and tribute. The signals were different, though. They were not the desperate calls for help she usually heard. They were not the angry demands of a warlike species either. They were simple and calm, almost polite. Captain Morthek walked over to her station. His thick armor clinked with each step. "What do we know about them?" he asked. Zechariah pulled up the analysis on her screen. "They call themselves humans. They come from a small yellow star system about 40 light years from here. Their technology seems adequate. Nothing special from what we can tell." "Weapons?" Morthek asked. He always asked about weapons first. "Some. Standard defensive systems. Nothing that would threaten a coalition fleet." She paused and looked at the message again. "But Captain, their first transmission was strange." "How strange?" "They simply said they would like to talk. No demands, no threats, no requests for aid. Just that they want to talk." Morthek's large head tilted to one side. In all his years as a military officer, he had never heard of such a thing. New species always had urgent needs. They were either running from something or running toward something. They did not just want to chat. "Perhaps they are planning something," he suggested. "Maybe they want to study us before they attack." Zechariah considered this. It was possible. Some species were clever like that. They would act friendly at first, learn about coalition defenses, then strike when they thought they could win. But the human signals did not feel like that kind of trick. "I think we should meet with them," she said finally. "The Coalition Council will want to know what they want, and if they are planning to cause trouble, it is better to find out now." "Captain," Morthek nodded. "Where should we meet, our space or theirs?" "Neutral ground. Nexus 7 station. It has good security and enough meeting rooms for proper negotiations." Zechariah began typing the reply message. "I will tell them to send a small delegation. No more than 1 ship. Standard first contact rules." The response from the humans came back within hours. They agreed to meet at Nexus 7 in 10 days. They would bring 1 ship with a small team of representatives. They thanked the Coalition for the opportunity to meet and said they looked forward to making new friends. Friends. Zechariah stared at that word for a long time. In galactic politics, there were allies, enemies, trading partners, and subjects. But friends? That was not a word used in diplomatic messages. The days passed quickly as the Coalition prepared for the meeting. Intelligence teams gathered what information they could about humans and their homeworld. The data was puzzling. Earth seemed to have plenty of resources. The humans had colonized several nearby planets. Their population was stable and growing. They did not appear to be facing any crisis that would drive them to seek help from the galaxy. Military analysts studied the human ship designs they could observe from long range. The ships were unfamiliar but not particularly large or threatening. The humans seemed to favor efficient designs over impressive ones. Their vessels looked practical rather than intimidating. Trade specialists tried to figure out what the humans might want to buy or sell. Earth had standard planetary resources, nothing rare or valuable enough to justify interstellar contact. The humans had not asked about trade routes or market access. They had not even asked basic questions about coalition currency or commerce, laws. By the time the human ship arrived at Nexus 7, every species in the coalition was curious about these strange newcomers. Representatives from 12 different worlds gathered at the station. Each brought their usual teams of negotiators, military advisors, and trade experts. Each came with their standard lists of demands and offers. The human ship docked quietly at the station. It was smaller than most diplomatic vessels and carried minimal weapons. The design was clean and simple, with no decorative elements or intimidating features. It looked more like a research vessel than a warship. 4 humans stepped off their ship and into the station. The Coalition representatives watched them carefully through security cameras. The humans looked around with obvious curiosity and wonder. They seemed genuinely excited to be meeting alien species for the first time. The human leader was a man named Jake Morrison. He wore a simple blue uniform with no medals or signs of high rank. His face was calm and friendly. The others introduced themselves as Lisa Carter, Ben Rodriguez, and Amy Walsh. They each carried only a small bag and what appeared to be a simple computer tablet. No weapons, no bodyguards, no large cases of equipment or documents. The Coalition security team was confused. How could a species send such a small and unprepared delegation to their first galactic meeting? Ambassador Zekthira met the humans at the docking bay. She had prepared a formal speech about Coalition procedures and diplomatic protocols. But when she saw the humans looking around with such obvious wonder and joy, her prepared words seemed suddenly too stiff and official. "Welcome to Nexus 7, she said instead. "I am Ambassador Zekthira. We are pleased to meet you." Captain Morrison smiled and extended his hand in what appeared to be a human greeting gesture. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with us. We have been hoping for this day for a long time. It is amazing to finally meet other intelligent species." There was something in his voice that made Zekthira pause. He sounded genuinely happy, not nervous or calculating or desperate, just happy to be there. In 50 years of diplomatic work, she had never heard that tone in a first contact situation. "Please," she said, leading them toward the meeting rooms. "Let us begin our discussions. The Coalition is eager to learn about your species and your intentions." As they walked through the station corridors, Zekthira noticed the humans looking at everything with fascination. They asked polite questions about the station's architecture and the different species they saw. They seemed to treat this meeting like an exciting adventure rather than a serious negotiation. This was going to be very different from any first contact she had ever handled. The main conference room on Nexus 7 had never been so crowded. Representatives from 12 different Coalition species filled the large circular table. Each delegation brought armed guards who stood along the walls. Mountains of documents, data tablets, and recording equipment covered every available surface. The Krellin delegates wore their ceremonial war paint and carried traditional bladed weapons alongside their energy pistols. The Manthari Empire sent 3 advisors for every negotiator. The Zalathi brought portable scanning equipment to analyze everything the humans said or did. Even the peaceful Urian traders had their contracts ready and their lawyers standing by. Ambassador Zekthira looked around the room with satisfaction. This was how proper first contact meetings were supposed to work. Every species brought their experts and their demands. Everyone knew what they wanted and what they were willing to give up to get it. Then the humans walked in. 4 people. No guards. No weapons that anyone could see. Jake Morrison carried a single data tablet. Lisa Carter had a small bag that might have contained a recording device. Ben Rodriguez held what looked like a language translation unit. Amy Walsh carried nothing but a friendly smile. The room went quiet as the humans took their seats at the table. Coalition Director Thexmar gestured with one of his 6 arms toward the impressive display of alien technology and personnel around the room. "As you can see," he said in his deep, rumbling voice, "the Coalition takes first contact very seriously. We have brought our best negotiators, our military advisors, our trade specialists, and our legal experts. Where is the rest of your delegation?" Captain Morrison looked around the room with genuine interest. "This is our whole team. We thought it would be better to start small and simple. If we need more people later, we can always ask them to join us." "But where are your demands?" asked Trade Minister Kixela of the Zalathi Commerce Guild. Her tentacles waved in confusion. "Where are your territorial claims, your resource requirements, your technology wish lists?" "We do not have any demands," Morrison replied calmly. "We are here to introduce ourselves and see if there is anything we can do to help." Help. There was that word again. Zekthira felt her scales tingle with unease. In 50 years of diplomacy, species only offered help when they wanted something big in return. Military Commander Vorthak of the Krellin hegemony leaned forward aggressively. His tusks gleamed under the station lights. What kind of help? Military assistance? Are you offering to fight our enemies? Well, we would prefer to help you make peace with your enemies, Amy Walsh said politely. Fighting usually makes problems. Worse, not better. The Krellin commander stared at her in shock. The idea of making peace instead of preparing for war was completely foreign to his people. He had never heard such a suggestion in any diplomatic meeting. Perhaps you misunderstand the situation, Director Thexmar said carefully. This is a formal first contact negotiation. You are supposed to tell us what you want from the coalition. Territory, resources, protection, technology, trade routes. Every species wants something. Dr. Rodriguez spoke up for the first time. His voice was calm and patient, like a teacher explaining something to students. We understand that is how these meetings usually work, but we really do not need anything from you. We have enough resources on our own worlds. We have our own technology. We are not at war with anyone. Then why are you here? Demanded Minister Kixela. Her tentacles were now moving very fast, which meant she was getting frustrated. Because we think it would be nice to have neighbors who get along, Morrison answered simply. The room erupted in confused chatter. Representatives from different species began talking rapidly in their own languages. Translators worked overtime to keep up with all the different conversations happening at once. Zekthira called for order. Please, everyone return to your seats. Let us continue this discussion in an organized manner. When the room was quiet again, she looked directly at the human delegation. Captain Morrison, I must ask you to be more specific. When you say you want to help, what exactly do you mean? Morrison nodded and activated his data tablet. Dr. Rodriguez, would you like to explain our gift? The human scientist stood up and placed a small device on the table. This contains a complete database of human knowledge that we are free to share. Art, music, literature, scientific discoveries, mathematical proofs, historical records, philosophical writings, and cultural information. We offer it freely to the coalition with no restrictions on its use. The alien stared at the device in shock. Information was power in galactic politics. Scientific data was worth more than gold or rare metals. Species guarded their knowledge carefully and only shared it in exchange for other valuable resources. What do you want in return? Asked Zekthira quietly. Nothing, Rodriguez replied. Knowledge should be shared. The more we all know, the better. We can all live. Commander Vorthak stood up so quickly his chair fell backward. This is impossible. No species gives away valuable information for free. What is the trick? What is the trap? There is no trick, Amy Walsh said gently. We humans learned long ago that sharing knowledge makes everyone stronger and safer. When people understand each other better, they are less likely to fight. But what about competitive advantage? Minister Kixela's voice had risen to nearly a shriek. What about strategic superiority? What about profit margins? Lisa Carter finally spoke. Her voice was steady and professional. We have found that helping our neighbors become successful and prosperous benefits everyone. Happy, secure people make better friends and partners than desperate, struggling ones. The coalition representatives looked at each other in growing alarm. This was not how galactic politics worked. This was not how intelligent species behaved. Every civilization in known history had operated on the principle of scarcity. Resources were limited, so you had to compete for them. Information was power, so you had to control it. Territory was valuable, so you had to claim it before someone else did. But the humans seemed to believe the exact opposite. They acted as if there was enough for everyone. They shared their knowledge freely. They wanted to help other species succeed rather than compete with them. Director Thexmar felt a chill run down his spine. In his long career, he had dealt with aggressive warrior species, cunning traders, desperate refugees, and ambitious empire builders. He knew how to negotiate with all of them, because they all wanted something he could understand. But how do you negotiate with beings who seem to want nothing for themselves and everything for others? How do you make deals with people who give away their most valuable possessions as gifts? How do you predict the behavior of a species that seems to operate on completely different principles than everyone else in the galaxy? For the first time in his career, Director Thexmar was truly afraid of a first contact situation, not because the humans seemed dangerous, but because they seemed impossible to understand. And in galactic politics, the unknown was always the most terrifying thing of all. 3 days had passed since the negotiations began. The coalition representatives were getting more nervous with each passing hour. They had tried every standard diplomatic approach they knew, but nothing worked with the humans. Military Commander Vorthak decided to try a different strategy. He had spent the morning studying reports of recent conflicts in the galaxy. Surely the humans would take sides in some of these wars. Every species had enemies and allies. It was the natural way of things. Captain Morrison, Vorthak said during the afternoon session, I want to tell you about the war between my people and the Zarathi Empire. The Zarathi have attacked 12 of our colony worlds in the past year. They have killed thousands of innocent Krellan civilians. They refuse all attempts at peace talks. Morrison listened carefully. His face showed concern and sadness. That sounds terrible. I am sorry your people are suffering. Good, Vorthak said, thinking he was finally getting somewhere. Then you understand why we need allies. Will humanity support the Krellan hegemony against these murderers? But Morrison's answer was not what Vorthak expected. We would be happy to help you set up peace talks with the Zarathi. Sometimes conflicts happen because both sides misunderstand each other. Maybe we could help you find a solution that works for everyone. Vorthak's tusks began to grind against each other. This was a sign of extreme frustration among his people. You do not understand. The Zarathi are evil. They cannot be reasoned with. They only understand force. Lisa Carter leaned forward. Commander, we have found that most conflicts happen because people are afraid or desperate. Have you asked the Zarathi why they are attacking your worlds? Maybe they need something that you could help them get in a peaceful way. The Krellan commander stood up abruptly. His face had turned a dark purple color. The Zarathi attack us because they are aggressive parasites who want to steal our resources. There is no peaceful solution with them. Well, Amy Walsh said gently, if you ever change your mind, we would be happy to help arrange talks. We have some experience with helping different groups find common ground. Vorthak stormed out of the room. Ambassador Zekthira quickly called for a break before any other delegates lost their tempers. During the break, Trade Minister Kixela approached the human delegation. She had prepared what she thought was an irresistible offer. The Zalathi were known throughout the galaxy for their business skills. I have a proposal for you, she said to Morrison. My people control mining rights on 17 worlds rich in rare metals. We need workers for these mines. Humans appear to be strong and healthy. We will pay good wages and provide housing and food. Dr. Rodriguez looked interested. What kind of working conditions do you provide? How many hours per day? What safety equipment do you give the workers? Minister Kixela waved her tentacles dismissively. Standard conditions, 12 hours per day, 6 days per week, basic safety gear. The pay is fair for this type of work. I am sorry, Morrison said politely, but that does not sound like the kind of work arrangement we would want our people to have. 12-hour days in mines sounds dangerous and exhausting. But the pay is excellent, Kixela insisted. Many species send their people to work in our mines. We appreciate the offer, Amy Walsh replied. But we are not interested in arrangements that might harm our people. However, if you would like help developing safer mining techniques or better working conditions, we would be happy to share some of our technology. Kixela stared at them in confusion. You would give us technology to improve our mines without asking for any payment. Of course, Rodriguez said. Safe working conditions benefit everyone. Happy, healthy workers are more productive, and fewer accidents mean lower costs for you. The trade minister left the meeting looking deeply troubled. In her culture, business was about finding ways to pay as little as possible while getting as much as possible. The human attitude made no sense to her. The next day, Director Thexamar decided to try a direct approach. He had prepared a list of everything the Coalition could offer humanity: technology, territory, trade rights, military protection, political influence. Every species wanted at least some of these things. "Captain Morrison," he said formally, "the Coalition is prepared to make you a generous offer. We can provide your species with advanced medical technology that could extend human lifespans by several decades. We can offer you mining rights on uninhabited worlds rich in rare elements. We can give you access to our trade networks that span half the galaxy. In return, we ask only for a formal alliance and some small trade agreements." Morrison looked thoughtful. "That is very generous of you, Director, but we must decline." "Decline?" Thexmar's voice rose in pitch. "You decline life extension technology, vast mineral wealth, access to galactic markets?" "We appreciate the offer," Lisa Carter explained, "but we are still developing our own worlds and building our own society. We are not ready to become dependent on outside technology or resources. It is better for us to learn and grow at our own pace." "But surely you want something," Thexmar pleaded. "Every species wants something: resources, territory, security, power, knowledge. What do humans desire?" Morrison was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his words sent a chill through every alien in the room. "Director, we have learned from our history that the things people usually fight over are not really that important. Land, resources, money, power over others. These things do not make people truly happy or secure. What makes people happy is having friends they can trust, meaningful work to do, and the knowledge that their children will have a better life than they did." Amy Walsh nodded in agreement. "We have everything we need on our own worlds: good food, clean water, safe homes, interesting work, and people who care about each other. We came here because we hope to make friends with other species who might want the same things." The alien delegates looked at each other with growing alarm. A species that did not want more resources was bad enough, but a species that seemed to have everything it needed was terrifying. How do you control people who are completely self-sufficient? How do you predict the actions of beings who seem genuinely content with what they have? Ambassador Zek Thera felt her scales beginning to itch with nervous energy. In 50 years of diplomatic work, she had learned to read the motivations of different species. Aggressive species wanted territory and dominance. Trading species wanted profit and market access. Peaceful species wanted protection and security. But the humans seemed to want none of these things. They appeared to be genuinely satisfied with their current situation. They offered help freely and declined benefits that other species would kill for. This made them completely unpredictable. And in galactic politics, unpredictable neighbors were the most dangerous kind of all. The meeting was scheduled to continue for 2 more days. But Zekathera was beginning to think that 2 more days would only make everyone more nervous about these strange humans who seemed to operate by rules that no one else in the galaxy understood. The emergency session began at midnight, station time. All the Coalition delegates gathered in a secure conference room far from where the humans were staying. The room was swept for listening devices 3 times. Guards stood at every entrance. This was the most secret meeting that had ever taken place on Nexus 7. Ambassador Zekathera looked around the table at her fellow delegates. Every face showed the same expression of worry and confusion. In 4 days of negotiations, they had learned nothing useful about human intentions. "We need to figure out what these humans really want," she said quietly. "Every species wants something. We just have not found it yet." Military Commander Vorthak slammed his fist on the table. "I have dealt with every type of warrior species in the galaxy. Aggressive ones, defensive ones, sneaky ones, honorable ones. But I have never met fighters who refuse to fight. It makes no sense." "Perhaps they are not fighters at all," suggested Dr. Kithara, the Coalition's chief xenobiologist. "Maybe they are a prey species that has learned to survive by being useful to predators." Trade Minister Kixela shook her head. "No prey species develops space travel this advanced. And no prey species offers gifts to potential predators. They are hiding something." Director Thexmar activated a holographic display showing everything they had learned about humanity. star charts of human space, technical specifications of their ships, images of Earth and its colonies, cultural data gathered from long-range observations. "Look at this information carefully," he said. "What do you see?" The delegates studied the data for several minutes. Slowly, uncomfortable expressions began to appear on their faces. Admiral Kessitar of the Coalition Defense Force was the first to speak. "Their ship designs are not familiar. The technology appears to be entirely their own development. They did not copy our designs or ask for our help." "And look at their energy readings," Dr. Kithara added nervously. "The power output from their ships is much higher than what we would expect from a new species. Either they have very advanced technology, or they are using power sources we do not understand." Minister Kixela pulled up the economic data. "Their resource consumption patterns are strange too. Most species expanding into space need to import materials from other worlds. But humans seem to produce everything they need locally. They are not buying or selling anything significant on galactic markets." The room grew very quiet as the implications began to sink in. A species that did not need outside resources was a species that could not be controlled through economic pressure. A species with unknown technology was a species that might be more powerful than they appeared. "There is something else," Admiral Kessitar said slowly. "I have been reviewing their military capabilities. Their ships carry defensive weapons only, but the design principles are unlike anything in our databases. It is as if they developed military technology along completely different lines than the rest of us." Ambassador Zekthira felt a cold sensation in her stomach. "What are you suggesting, Admiral?" "I am suggesting that maybe the humans are not a new species at all. Maybe they are an old species that has been hiding from galactic civilization until now. Maybe they have been watching us for a long time, learning about us, deciding whether we are worth talking to." The idea sent a wave of fear through the room. The galaxy was large, and there were unexplored regions where an advanced civilization could remain hidden for thousands of years. If humans had been studying coalition species from a distance, they would know all about galactic politics, military capabilities, and economic systems. But why reveal themselves now? Asked Dr. Kithara. Commander Vorthak's face had turned pale gray, which was a sign of fear among his people. Maybe they have decided we are not a threat to them. Maybe they are so advanced that they can afford to be generous because nothing we do could possibly harm them. The thought was terrifying. Every species in the coalition had built their power through military strength, economic control, or political influence. But what if the humans were so far beyond all of that galactic politics looked like children playing games? "Look at their behavior again," Minister Kixela said quietly. "They offer valuable technology as gifts. They refuse profitable trade deals. They decline military alliances. They seem completely uninterested in gaining territory or resources. That sounds like the behavior of a species that already has more technology, territory, and resources than they know what to do with." Admiral Kessitar said grimly. Director Thexmar began pacing around the room. "Think about it from their perspective. If you were so advanced that you had unlimited energy, unlimited resources, and technology that could solve any problem, what would you want from less advanced species?" "Nothing," Zekthira whispered. "You would want nothing from them." "Exactly, but you might want to help them, the same way adults help children, not because you expect anything in return, but because you think it is the right thing to do." The room fell into a stunned silence. Everyone was thinking the same terrible thought. If humans were that advanced, then every other species in the galaxy was completely dependent on their goodwill. Humans could help the coalition or destroy it, and there would be nothing anyone could do to stop them. "We need to find out how advanced they really are," Admiral Kessitar said finally. "We need to know if they are a threat." "How?" asked Vorthak. "They have not shown us their military strength. They have not bragged about their technology. They have not made any threats or demands. How do we test a species that refuses to demonstrate their power?" Dr. Kithara looked up from her datapad. "I have been analyzing their cultural information, their art, music, and literature. There are references to something they call the Awakening. It seems to be a period in their recent history when their society changed dramatically. Changed how? Zechthira asked. They stopped fighting wars among themselves. They developed new forms of government based on cooperation rather than competition. They began focusing on what they call sustainable abundance rather than resource acquisition. Minister Kixela's tentacles began moving rapidly. Sustainable abundance? What does that mean? I think it means they learned to produce everything they need without depleting natural resources or exploiting other people. If that is true, then they really do not need anything from the galaxy. They can take care of themselves completely. They are. Delegates looked at each other with growing horror. A self-sufficient species with unknown technology that seemed genuinely interested in helping others was the most unpredictable and potentially dangerous force they could imagine. What do we do? Vorthak asked quietly. Director Thexmar stopped pacing and looked at his fellow delegates. We have two choices. We can try to make them our enemies, which might be impossible and would definitely be dangerous. Or we can try to make them our friends and hope they really are as benevolent as they seem. And if they are not as benevolent as they seem, Admiral Kessatar asked, then we are probably already doomed and there is nothing we can do about it. The emergency session continued for hours, but no one could think of a safe strategy for dealing with humans. They were too unknown, too powerful, and too strange to fit into any normal diplomatic framework. As dawn approached on Nexus 7, the Coalition delegates faced a terrifying truth. For the first time in galactic history, they had encountered a species that they could not understand, could not control, and could not defeat. They could only hope that humanity's apparent kindness was genuine, because they had no other choice. The final day of negotiations had arrived. The Coalition delegates entered the meeting room looking tired and nervous. They had spent the entire night debating what to do about the humans. No one had been able to sleep. Captain Morrison and his team arrived at their usual time, looking refreshed and cheerful. They seemed genuinely happy to be there, which only made the aliens more uncomfortable. Director Thexmar had decided to take a direct approach. The Coalition needed to know the truth about humanity, even if the truth was frightening. Captain Morrison, he began carefully, we have been thinking about your species and your capabilities. We believe you may be more advanced than you have told us. Morrison looked surprised. What makes you think that? Your technology is unfamiliar. Your ships use power sources we do not understand. Your society appears to have solved problems that other species still struggle with. You offer valuable gifts freely and want nothing in return. This suggests you have resources and abilities far beyond what most civilizations possess. The human captain was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded, slowly. You are right. We probably should have been more honest about our situation from the beginning. Every alien in the room tensed. This was the moment they had been dreading. Were the humans about to reveal themselves as conquerors? Advanced beings who had been playing with them for their own amusement? About 50 years ago, Morrison continued, humanity went through what we call the Great Transition. We learned to produce unlimited clean energy. We developed manufacturing systems that can create anything we need from basic elements. We solved the problems of disease, aging, and resource scarcity. Ambassador Zechthira felt her heart skip a beat. The humans were describing a post-scarcity civilization. Every species dreamed of achieving such abundance, but most never came close. We also learned something important about ourselves, Lisa Carter added. We discovered that having unlimited resources does not automatically make people happy. We had to change how we think about success and fulfillment. Dr. Rodriguez leaned forward. Our ancestors spent thousands of years fighting over land, water, food, and energy. But once we had unlimited access to these things, we realized that competition and conflict were making us miserable. We had to learn new ways to live. What kind of new ways? Asked Dr. Kithara nervously. We learned that the best way to ensure our own security and happiness was to help others become secure and happy too, Amy Walsh explained. When your neighbors are doing well, they do not attack you or try to steal from you. When people have what they need, they can focus on creating beautiful things and solving interesting problems instead of fighting. Military Commander Vorthaak shook his head in disbelief. But what about defense? What about protecting your territory? Other species will try to take what you have. Morrison smiled gently. Commander, when you have the ability to create unlimited resources, there is nothing to steal. If someone wants something we have, we can just make more of it. There is no reason to fight when abundance is possible for everyone. The alien delegates exchanged worried glances. They were beginning to understand just how different humans really were. But you must want to expand, insisted Minister Kixela. All species want to grow and spread across the galaxy. We are expanding, Dr. Rodriguez replied. But we expand by terraforming dead worlds, not by taking worlds that belong to other species. The galaxy is huge. There is room for everyone to have as much space as they want. Director Thexmar felt a strange mixture of relief and terror. The humans were not conquerors, but they were so advanced that they operated by completely different rules than everyone else in the galaxy. Captain Morrison, he said slowly, I must ask you directly. Do you see other species as threats, as competitors, as subjects to be controlled? Morrison looked genuinely shocked by the question. Of course not. We see you as potential friends and neighbors. We hope that someday all species in the galaxy can have the same abundance and security that we enjoy. And if we refuse your friendship? Admiral Kessitar asked. If we choose to remain as we are? That is your choice to make, Amy Walsh said simply. We will not force our way of life on anyone. But if you ever want help solving problems like hunger, disease, energy shortages, or resource conflicts, we are happy to share what we have learned. The room fell silent. The coalition delegates were struggling to process what they had heard. For generations, galactic civilization had been built on the principle that resources were limited and species had to compete for survival, but the humans were suggesting that this entire worldview was wrong. There is one thing I do not understand, Ambassador Zekthira said finally. If you have all this technology and abundance, why do you want to be friends with less advanced species? What do you gain from helping us? Morrison was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his words changed everything the aliens thought they knew about intelligent life. Ambassador, we have learned that the most valuable things in the universe cannot be manufactured or stolen. Friendship, love, beauty, knowledge, art, music, stories, laughter. These things only exist when different people come together and share their experiences. Lisa Carter nodded in agreement. We can create unlimited food and energy and materials, but we cannot create unlimited wisdom or creativity or joy. Those things come from relationships with other beings who see the world differently than we do. Every species in the galaxy has unique perspectives, cultures, art forms, and ways of thinking, Dr. Rodriguez added. By becoming friends with all of you, we learn things we could never discover on our own. You make our lives richer and more meaningful. The alien delegates stared at the humans in amazement. They had spent days trying to figure out what humans wanted from the galaxy. Now they finally understood. The humans wanted what every intelligent being wanted: connection, friendship, and the joy of discovering new things. But unlike other species, humans had the resources and technology to pursue these goals without hurting anyone else. They could offer friendship freely because they did not need to take anything in return. Director Thexmar stood up slowly. Captain Morrison, on behalf of the Galactic Coalition, I would like to offer humanity a permanent seat on our governing council. Morrison looked surprised. That is very generous, but we did not ask for political power. We know, Thexmar said with a smile. That is exactly why we want to give it to you. We have realized that species who do not want power are the ones who should have it. The negotiations ended with something that had never happened before in galactic history. The coalition offered membership to a species that had not asked for it, had not demanded it, and probably did not need it. But as the human delegation prepared to return to Earth, every alien representative knew that the galaxy had changed forever. For the first time, they had encountered a species that proved abundance was possible. Cooperation was better than competition, and the best way to ensure your own success was to help others succeed. Some species would resist this new way of thinking. Others would embrace it eagerly. But none of them would ever be the same after meeting the humans who arrived at the negotiation table with no demands and left with the friendship of the galaxy. Captain Morrison's final words to the Coalition would be remembered for generations. We look forward to learning from all of you, and we hope that together we can build a galaxy where every species has the chance to reach their full potential. The age of scarcity was ending. The age of abundance had begun.